rose from his bed. By peering out his window, he saw that the sun had just fully come out from the horizon and found its place in the sky. If it weren't for his window, he never would have known. His small home was naturally dark, as he only had a limited amount of candles that he rarely lit anyways. As he got to his feet, he went through his morning routine, which consisted of grabbing his sword that rested on his bed frame, slinging it on, and walking out of his house. Khed lived in a city named Araska, which was a humble, wooden-stone community that didn't boast much except good people. All the homes looked alike in some manner, with a cobblestone foundation and wooden walls that met a triangular roof. Their main source of economy was farming, as Araska found itself in a grassy plain stretch, so a large expanse of crops could be found just west of the city. Mountains bordered the area from not too far away, so that there was a safe, isolated air. The citizens were happy and satisfied, going about their day along the stone pathways, carrying baskets or lumber or whatever other errand they might be on. This wasn't the case for Khed, however. He never carried anything in his hands, as he was the only mercenary in town. He was well known, since he had worked for more than half of the residents at this point. He wasn't hard to miss, either, as he always wore the same outfit and neutral facial expression that held a hint of irritation. His clothes consisted of gray cloth pants held in at the bottom by black leather boots, a belt that wrapped around both his pants and his dark green tunic, a leather shoulder strap on his left arm for low levels of protection, and, of course, his sheathed sword on his back. He himself had pale skin that had been made tan from the sun, brown, bushy hair that fell down his head, and brown eyes to match. Today, as any other day, Khed was walking towards the middle of the town, where the community bulletin board lay. This is where people left news, events, announcements, and, most importantly for Khed, job offers. While these offers did sometimes involve fighting, most of the time it was just some form of physical labor, so Khed did have to stoop to normal work from time to time. He told himself that this kept him in good physical shape at least, which was important regardless of whatever job he was doing. As he approached the bulletin board, he could see a few slips of paper underneath the job offers section. His eyes immediately scanned for anything that involved getting use out of his blade, and settled with the closest thing he could find to that, a security position. He grabbed the slip, read it over, and decided to head to where the job would take place. Khed was to simply watch over a cartographer's shop while the owner went out to attend to important business, as the description said. Though never being there before, Khed knew where the cartographer was, as the town was small enough for everyone to know where everything was. Upon arriving, he took the place in. It was a very vertical shop, almost resembling that of a minuscule wooden cathedral. It stood tall, but only about 2 or 3 stories up, and had only about one visible window, which was a circular one that sat in the upper levels of the building's front view. The place felt like it should be dilapidated, but it was obvious that whoever tended to it did a good job, as the wood wasn't rotting or cracked. 2 steps led to the front door, which Khed entered warily. The inside was quaint, with a counter lining the back wall and shelves filled with rolled-up maps on either side of the shop. Though Khed didn't notice at first, a man was standing behind the counter, and upon seeing Khed enter, called out to him.
"Welcome, young man. How may I help you?"
The man said cheerily. Khed now looked to face him.
"I'm here for the job offering posted on the bulletin board,"
he responded with a matter-of-fact tone.
"I see. In that case, come over to the counter and I'll fill you in on your role."
The man now motioned for Khed to come towards him, which he did. The old cartographer leaned on the counter, getting his face a little closer to Khed.
"I'll be leaving town for just a few short hours,"
said the man.
"and all I ask is that you stay here in the shop and look over it. Make sure no one gets in, you know?"
The man flashed a jolly smile. Without a second thought, Khed replied,
"Easy enough. You have my word, sir."
He extended his hand to the man, who shook it.
"A gentleman, I see. I like you. Sorry, I don't believe I caught your name.
Khed, sir. Khed said as he straightened up his sword strap.
Well, young Khed, I'll be off now. Thank you again, and I'll pay you upon return.
The old man came out from behind the counter and made for the door. Khed found a wooden chair sitting in the corner of the main room and pulled it out into the middle. He took his sword off his back, rested it against the side, and took a seat. Khed was patient naturally, so John let him play lookout would be an easy feat. He sat quietly, barely moving, simply entertaining himself with his own thoughts. An hour or so had passed now, and still nothing had stirred in the cartography shop. Khed stayed as he had been, still in his wooden seat. He was in the middle of a long train of thought when he heard a noise from his right.
That was too loud to be the building settling,
Khed muttered to himself. Cautiously, he got up from his seat and grabbed the handle of his blade. He held it out in front of him towards where the noise came from. He waited a few moments to see if it would sound again. After a minute of silence, he decided to head forwards anyway, sword still out in front. He opened a door that led into a side room and surveyed his surroundings. After thoroughly scoping out his eye level, he looked up and noticed an open window amongst a score of closed windows. A thief, Khed whispered to himself. He now started looking for a possible route the intruder could have taken after entering. Scanning the top row of the room, he saw that there was an opening that someone could climb to get onto the second floor. In a hurry, he rushed out into the main room again, looking for a way up. He noticed a ladder in the far left corner that led to the second floor, which was a balcony that wrapped around the entire main room, dashed to it, and made his way up. After placing both feet on the second floor, he looked around before noticing a figure at the end of the stretch. Khed sprinted towards him, and just as the thief had noticed someone was coming at him, Khed had him pinned. The thief wore all black attire, with cloth garments and a bandana wrapped around his neck.
What's your business here?
Khed yelled in his face. The thief didn't respond.
I said, what's your business here?
Khed repeated. Still, the thief stayed silent.
Very well,
Khed said much more calmly. He grabbed the man's shoulder, lifted him up, and told him,
you're going to go down the ladder now. Try to run away, and I will not hesitate to hurl my sword towards your body.
The thief nodded and did as he was told. Once both of them had descended the ladder, Khed took hold of the man's shoulder again, where he led him out the main door and stopped him in front of the building.
You,
Khed called to a passerby.
go grab the cards. I have a thief here.
The fellow citizen shook her head nervously in agreement and ran off. The two stood there until the lady had returned with the cards, Khed having his right hand on the thief's shoulder and the other holding his blade. After the guards had come and collected the intruder, Khed returned to his post in the shop. Another hour or two passed, before eventually he saw the front door open and the old man entering.
Oh, still intact, I see.
The old man joked as he closed the door.
Well, sir, there was an intruder. A thief, to be exact.
Khed reported as he stood up.
You don't say. And did you fend him off?
The cartographer inquired, motioning to the sword resting against the seat.
Yes, sir. Nothing was stolen or damaged, and the thief is in the guard's hands now.
Khed said with the attentiveness of a soldier.
Oh my, how reliable you are. First impressions are everything, you know, and I'd say you made a mighty fine one. Yes, you are quite reliable indeed,
the old man said as he stroked his chin.
Doing my job, sir,
Khed responded.
That you are, young man. Now, let me get you paid, Khed.
It was past noon now as Khed walked down the streets of Araska, a pouch of coins in hand. He was heading home to drop off his pay before deciding on what to do with the rest of his daylight. The security job had taken the majority of the day, and so Khed was in between going back to the bulletin board or taking it easy. First, however, was going back home. When he rounded onto the stretch of road that his house was located on, a man in a cloak approached him.
Excuse me, young man, but may I take a moment of your precious time?
The stranger rang out. Khed turned to face the man. quite close to him, actually. He had stubble across his face that held small patches of gray in it, short, neat hair, and a face that placed him in his mid-40s based on the lack of wrinkles but clear aging in his skin. He had a charismatic, yet almost plastic smile on his face, and Khaled's immediate impression was that he did not like this man.
For what, may I ask?
Khaled retorted.
Well, I'm sure you're familiar with Olic, of course, but perhaps not the extent of all the great works that he did within his lifetime. I was hoping to maybe strengthen your faith in him and his teachings by letting you know of all the wonders of Olic and the Seven.
The man outstretched his arms now, beaming with joy.
7? I believe it's Olic and the 8, is it not?
Khaled asked in a genuine puzzlement.
Oh, good man. It is indecent, really quite inappropriate, to consider Cassian among the group. That man was unclean, unfit to walk alongside Olic, and really established his place in history when he ultimately, well, you know the story.
Killed him. Yes, I know the story.
Khaled finished the man's sentence.
So,
Said the man.
you should know that it is Olic and the Seven. Why, may I ask then, do you still call them the 8?
The man scoffed, seemingly offended.
I thought that was what people called them, sir. Now, if you'll excuse me.
Khaled attempted to get past the man, but the man stepped in front of him.
Perhaps you don't understand.
The man started again.
How serious this is? Cassian is a murderer. I mean, he is quite literally called Cassian the Murderer. Any good follower of Olic knows this. So, young man, why don't you? Oh, maybe, and it hurts me to say this, you don't wish to follow in Olic's footsteps? You aren't among the damned? 7 forbid you have any drop of sympathy for those of Cassinian blood.
Khaled was beginning to become irritated with the man. His manner of twisting words to antagonize Khaled was getting on his nerves, and all his religious talk made Khaled eventually blurt out,
No, sir. Of course I don't have any sympathy for Cassian's descendants. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'd say you've taken a moment of my precious time.
This was a lie, as Khaled was indifferent to the subject, but longed to get out of his engagement. With that, he strode off towards his house, leaving the man standing in the street, looking for the next ongoer to come by. Khaled abruptly entered his home, threw his coin purse onto his side table, and sat down on the edge of his bed. That conversation was the deciding factor on what he would do with the rest of his day. As he didn't want to risk running back into the preacher, he would stay at home, counting cash and whatever other pastimes may pop into his mind. And so, he got back up, went to the side table, and started counting. Thoughts of today, replaying in his head. Alright, that was chapter 1. I hope you all enjoyed it. Let me know if you'd be interested in chapter 2. Yeah, I actually really enjoyed reading that, so I hope you guys did as well. But thank you very much for listening. It means a lot to me that you stuck around towards the end for a story that I wrote. And you know, yeah, I hope you like me to continue this. But thank you very much for listening, my friends.